On one side there is the sea, Fethiye, Ölüdeniz, blue water and postcard views, and just behind it there is Kayaköy, a ghost town of stone houses, empty streets and silent charges. People say it's abandoned. And yes, physically it is, but metaphorically for me, it isn't. Not after what I witnessed here. And by the end of this video, I will explain exactly what I mean. But don't cheat and skip forward, I'll take that personally. The name Kayaköy already tells you something about this place. In Turkish, Kaya means rock and Köy means village. So Kayaköy can be translated as rock village. And honestly, there could be not better name, because everywhere you look there is stone houses, stone walls, stone paths, a whole village built into the hillside, almost as if it grew out of the mountain itself. But Kayaköy was not always known by this name. Before it became Kayaköy, this place was also known as Levisi, a village where Greek Orthodox families lived for generations. And when you walk through it today, you don't just see abandoned buildings, you see the remains of a community. A place that once had life, routine, faith and voices. So before we talk about why Kayaköy became silent, we first have to understand what it once was. Today when people come here, they usually see ruins first, and I understand why. The empty houses, the broken walls, the churches without people, it immediately feels like a ghost town. But before Kayaköy became silent, it was a real village. According to the official Turkish museum description, the settlement had around 350 to 400 houses. Most of them were small, no larger than 50 square meters, and usually built with 2 floors. The lower floors were commonly used as cellars, and many homes had underground systems to collect rainwater. And what I find really interesting is the way the village was arranged. The houses were positioned along the hillside so they would not block each other's view or natural light. So this was not just a random collection of stone houses, it was a functioning village carefully built around daily life. Among these homes there were many smaller couples, 2 large churches, a school building and even a customs building. Historical accounts also describe Kayaköy as a community of several thousand people. So imagine this place before the silence. Hundreds of homes on the hillside, families living close to each other, children walking to school, church bells echoing through the valley, people carrying bread, water, tools, wood, neighbors calling to each other from doorways. This was not a place built for tourists. It was not built to be photographed as a ruin. It was home. And that is the part of that makes Kayaköy different, because when you walk here, you don't feel like you are only looking at the old stones. You feel like you're walking through someone's unfinished story, a story that stopped but never completely disappeared. The 2 buildings that stand out the most in Kayaköy are the churches. The first one is called Panagia Birgiotissa. Panagia is the title for the Virgin Mary in Greek Orthodox tradition. So this was not just another stone building somewhere in the village. For the people who lived here, this was one of the main places where life happened. Weddings, funerals, prayers, holidays, all the important moments that bring community together. The second major church is called Taxiaris, also known as Taxiarches. That name is connected to the archangels in the Greek Orthodox tradition. And when you see where these churches are placed, you understand something. They were not hidden in the village, they were part of the identity of the village. You could imagine people walking past them every day, children growing up around them, families gathering there year after year, and around the main churches there were also smaller couples, plus a school building and a customs building. That tells you a lot. Kayaköy was not just a bunch of houses on a hill, it was a place with religion, education, trade and daily life, a real village, and that makes the silence today feel very different. Kayaköy's story did not begin with the abandoned houses we see today. The official archaeological description connects this area with ancient Camelossus. According to philological evidence, the history of settlement may go back as far as the 3rd millennium before Christus, but the physical remains found here so far do not go back earlier than the 4th century before Christus. So when people call Kayaköy a ghost town, they're usually talking about the village from the late Ottoman period. But the land itself carries much older history. That is it what makes this place interesting. It is not only one story, it is layers of stories, ancient settlements, Greek Orthodox village life, Ottoman history, forced migration, abandonment, and now tourism. In 2023, Kayaköy was visited by just over 100,000 people. In 2024, around 81,000 people came here, and it still remained the most visited archaeological site in Fethiye region. So even today, this is so-called abandoned village is not really outside of life. It has become part of Fethiye modern tourism map. But the question is, when thousands of people visit the place like this every year, are they really seeing it, or are they just passing through? And the question of questions right now is, what really happened here? And how did a living village become a place people visit as ruins? To understand that, we have to go back to the early 20th century. After the First World War, the Ottoman Empire was collapsing. The Greco-Turkish War changed the region completely, and in 1923, a Treaty of Lausanne created one of the most painful turning points in this story: a compulsory population exchange between Greece and Turkey. Greek Orthodox Christians living in Turkey were sent to Greece, and vice versa. Muslims living in Greece were sent to Turkey. There were exceptions, but for many communities this meant one thing: leaving home. And I think that is the word we have to stay with for 1 second: home. Because when we talk about history, it is easy to say things like population exchange, trade, immigration, political agreement, but for the people living here, this was not a political term. This was their street, their church, their school, their neighbors, their dead buried in the ground, their childhood, their view from the window, and then suddenly they had to leave, not because the houses were destroyed, not because the village was stopped working for whatever reason, but because history moved through this place and the people had to move with it. So let's look what's inside this house. I mean, people lived inside here for like, I don't know, hundreds of years. And what was left behind? The village was not erased, the houses did not disappear, the streets did not vanish, the charters were still standing, everything was still here, except the people who gave it a meaning. After the exchange, Muslim families from Greece came to Turkey, and some were accepted to settle places like Kayaköy. But life here was not simple. The village was built on hillside, the houses were old, and the layout and the structure of the village did not fit to everyone's needs. Some people settled nearby, some chose flatter areas, and slowly Kayaköy became emptier and emptier. Not in one dramatic moment, not overnight, but slowly. Roofs collapsed, wood disappeared, walls opened to the sky, nature entered the rooms, and over time the village became what we see now, a place that looks frozen, but was actually changed by decades of weather, neglect, memory, and silence. There is another chapter in Kayaköy's story that is easy to miss. In 1957, the Fethiye region was hit by a major earthquake. By the time, Kayaköy was no longer the village it had once been, but the earthquake damaged many of the remaining structures even further. Some of what we see today is not only the result of abandonment, it is also the result of physical damage that came decades later. And then there is something else. Kayaköy did not only survive as a ruin, it also entered literature, and cinema. The village is widely believed to have inspired Eskilbache, the fictional village in Louis Benri's novel Birds Without Wings. The book tells a story set in a southwestern Anatolia, in a community where Muslims and Christians lived side by side before war and nationalism changed everything. Kayaköy also appears in the closing scenes of the film The Water Diviner, so even outside Turkey, this village became part of larger cultural memory, not only as a place people visit, but as a place artists return to when they want to tell stories about home, loss, and coexistence. Long story short, we are getting close to the end of the video, and now I want to come back what I said in the beginning. I said there was a moment here that changed the way I looked at Kayaköy, and this was that moment I walked up to one of the chapels. Wow, I was only able to record few seconds of it, but honestly, these few seconds were enough. Standing here in person, hearing these voices echo through the stone walls, it was beautiful. And for a short moment, this place did not feel empty at all. It felt like the chapel was not just a ruin anymore, it felt remembered, it felt respected, almost like the silence of the village had been interrupted by something that belonged here. And that is what I meant in the beginning. Yes, Kayaköy is physically abandoned, but houses are empty, the streets are quiet, most of the village is in ruins, but in that moment, with these voices inside the chapel, it didn't feel abandoned to me. Because sometimes a place does not only need people living in every day to feel alive, sometimes few seconds are enough, one sound, one prayer, one song, and suddenly the past does not feel so far away anymore.